We've done a great job in this province of building the SuperNet and putting SuperNet POPs in play. But we haven't done a very good job of extending that broadband coverage out into the counties. And what we've effectively done is we have taken the financial burden of the last mile or the first mile, and we've taken that and given it to the counties. The counties now have taken on the responsibility to determine how to complete that first or last mile. That's the missing ingredient a lot of people don't understand. So out of the 47 counties, ViTel has probably been contacted by about 20 of them now. And these county councilors are trying to deal with these issues. And they're dealing with them from their level of understanding. So that gives you an idea of what happened to Parkland. Parkland took a look at all this and said, we really don't understand it. What is happening? How can we solve the problem? In fact, what is the problem? And so we were contracted to do the Parkland County contract study. So Parkland hired us to basically accomplish two objectives. The first objective was the expansion of access of high-speed wireless internet access to all Parkland County residents and businesses. The key word there is all, right? Not 80%, not 90%, 100%. 100% coverage within the county. And another objective was improve the quality of access in already served areas of Parkland County. So a certain number of ISPs have already been there. They were already providing services within those areas, but how could we improve that? So what we did was we put together a project. The project had a number of different phases. The first phase was the analysis of the current situation. And in this phase right here, we did a population analysis. We looked through the 2006 census. And then we also did an analysis of the terrain within the county. And we came up with 3 different terrain types, A, B, and C. We also looked at different projects that were currently occurring federally and provincially that would impact the implementation of broadband in the county. Things like the CRTC deferral fund were looked at. Things like the first responders network were looked at. Those are things that were going on outside of the county's control, but may have an impact on the county. The second thing we did was we went in and looked at the broadband requirements. This was a wake-up call. You see, up until this point, we had assumed that the requirement was to provide basic connectivity. But what we found out was that there's a number of different markets within a county. A county covers a very extensive area. We found out that the first market that we discovered in there was the underserved areas. And that's generally what most of the time we're talking about. But we also found within there, we found that there's a problem with the overserved areas, also requirements with the industrial parks and businesses, and requirements for the county itself. Those requirements drove us to come up with some broadband strategies. And this is where we determined that one size doesn't fit all. We had gone into the project assuming that everything was wireless. But what came out of it at this point was an understanding that in order to meet the requirements, it was going to be wireless, copper, and fiber. We looked at each of those strategies and we put together an economic study for Parkland. And at this stage of the project, we came to the conclusion that there's really no economic model for deploying broadband into the underserved areas. And then the fifth, we provided Parkland some recommendations. And then the sixth, we gave Parkland some next steps. So the recommendations. Now that's speeding it up, right? The recommendations was we recommended that we deploy a WiMAX 802.16e wireless equipment using licensed spectrum in the underserved areas of western Parkland County. When we started to look at these recommendations, each one of these recommendations points toward a respective market or area within the county. So what we're talking about there is the underserved areas. Another area within the county was the hamlets and villages. We encouraged Parkland to partner with TELUS to provide DSL broadband access in those hamlets and villages. And the third one, which really expanded the scope of the project, was we talked to Parkland about economic development within their industrial parks, Atchison, Meridian, and Entwistle, and we recommend a fiber-based infrastructure within those parks. The other recommendations we came up with were a little bit more soft, but relevant compared to what we learned as we went through the study. We asked Parkland to look into enforcing tower placement guidelines. We signed non-disclosures with the ISPs, but through that what we discovered was there was a lot of illegal towers within the county. And every time there's a lightning storm heading toward Edmonton from the west, I think of the county. I think of the towers that are illegally placed beside public schools. I think about the towers that are illegally placed beside residential homes. And another thing is we wanted to ensure that within each of the areas that the market forces were still kept. Market forces, we don't want a monopoly within the county. We want to ensure there's a minimum of 3 providers. That way we can keep the service up and the price down. And the 6th was become an intelligent community. Intelligent community is a forum or a think tank that was funded by the Ontario government. And there's a great website on that, and I'll let you go into that on your own. And then from that, we told Parkland to aggressively promote and position broadband access. So we came up with some next steps, and these next steps are really what they are, they are 4 projects now that Parkland County is continuing with. These next 4 projects will probably take the next year or 2 years to accomplish.
Could you do this as quickly as possible, please, Allan?
There it is. So what did we learn? We learned that one size does not fit all. People will come up and say, wireless is the answer. It's only part of the answer. Copper is part of the answer as well as fiber. We learned that the current wireless technologies, 802.11, using unlicensed spectrum, simply will not meet future requirements in the county. Third lesson we learned was there's no viable economic models for servicing underserved areas. Long-term government assistance will be required. It's going to have to be done through a P3 partnership. And let's not forget that the community involvement is important. And the best example of that is the gas co-ops. I've heard that mentioned earlier today. And the 4th, which I don't mean to offend the counties, but the counties have little or no understanding of the problem. This probably lesson learned came after the study was complete. What I've learned now is that each county has a different strategy, using Beaver, Leduc, Camrose, and Carson as examples. Most counties depend on the wireless ISPs for advice and recommendations. That is a big mistake. It's because the wireless ISPs have an economic agenda versus a community agenda. All right? Thank you very much.
And thank you very much, Allan.